When I think of a house on the water, I think of Cape Cod or Nag's Head, something along those lines, and it's something about that natural cedar shake that I'm really into. And I wanted that look for our lake house. The problem with natural cedar siding, or natural wood siding in any sense, is that it's going to deteriorate over time. It's going to require maintenance to keep it from warping and cracking and discoloring and all that stuff, and I just really don't need something else to look after. Luckily, I found a product that is composite, it's going to last forever, requires zero maintenance, and it looks just like the real thing. So I reached out to the company and I asked them if they could send over a rep or somebody that I could interview and just talk to about the product so you all could learn more. They opted to send their CEO, and their CEO has all kinds of cool things to share, including how they get that look. And he's also been a part of some other revolutionary products that you may have heard of. Let's get right into the interview. All right, guys, we've got some amazing siding on the house, and luckily I've got here today Mr. Ralph, and he is the president of the company that we worked with on the siding project called, it's actually Tando Composites.
Correct.
The product itself is called Beach House Shake.
Correct.
All right, so tell us a little bit about your history and kind of the different companies that you've worked and how you've gotten to this point.
Well, thanks, Jameson. We're thrilled to be here. You know, every once in a while, regardless of industry, there are certain disruptive products that come out, a new technology. So 30 years ago, you probably weren't born yet, but
I'm 37.
Okay, 30. All decking was a little over 30 years ago. All decking was wood, right? And I was fortunate enough, I was the first employee at the Trex company, and we launched a composite decking. And it was able to disrupt the industry because there was a need. Consumers loved their wood deck, but they didn't love the splinters, the maintenance, how often it would crack, chip, split, and more. So fast forward today, most decks today are composite because it made sense. So I was involved with that. Then we also launched a PVC trim years later called AZEK. And I see that same dynamic was happening in the cedar shingle market. Consumers love natural cedar shingles, love them. However, much like wood decking, when you ask them what do they think of their wood cedar shingles, well, it looked good when it went up, but wow, it's curling, it's cracking, a lot of maintenance, and even more so than the decking, wood cedar shingles discolor quickly and unevenly. They turn black and brown, and they don't look good.
Yeah, and I think you can definitely see that even just in different sides, like different levels of exposure to the, you know, you've got one side that gets a lot of sun. You could definitely see, you know, one side of the house looks completely different than the other.
Correct. And if you go by a house that has cedar shingles and they replaced a window or put something through, you'll see new cedar that goes around the window or door is a markedly different color than stuff that's even been up for a year or two.
Yeah.
Stuff under the soffit still hasn't turned colors. So unfortunately in the cedar world, now that most of the cedar is new growth, that discoloration in the cupping is happening even faster than it was generations ago. So there's a real need for a technology that looks just as good as natural cedar shingles, but will stay looking like the day it was installed. So that's how we came up with Beach House Shake.
So being lakeside here and growing up on the East Coast, I always felt like the cedar shake look just kind of went with the water. So I felt like it was an awesome fit for this. It's kind of give us that cottagey Cape Cod look. And that's how we ultimately decided on a shaker style siding. Obviously comparing a lot of different products, this was it was definitely lowest maintenance, but also gave us that real authentic look. So can you tell us a little bit about how you achieve that look? Because in my opinion, this is far better than a lot of the other, especially the monochromatic products out there on the market. But how do you get that look? And then tell us a little bit about like how the coating is as far as durability and longevity, and you know, just how the product responds to over time.
Oh, fantastic. So our product is actually made out of a composite, right? So if we look at cedar shingles in general, there was wood cedar shingles, and then there were a lot of polymer cedar shingles. And the polymer cedar shingles do a good job. They're lower maintenance. However, they're generally a monochromatic, as you said. They're a yellow, a green, a blue, and you don't get that individual cedar shingle look, right? So with our composite technology, composites have many advantages, and we often compare our composites right to the natural cedar shingle. because we're going after the consumer. The consumer wants the look of a natural cedar shingle. And when they go with a polymer, they're sometimes compromising. It's either a painted cedar, but it's very monochromatic, still a good product, low maintenance, impervious to moisture, all that stuff. However, it doesn't look like a typical Cape Cod house or a typical lakefront house.
Sure.
So I knew we were onto something where, it was probably about 3 years ago, we became the first synthetic cedar shingle. We are a composite. It's a composite cedar shingle. We were approved in Cape Cod, right? And if you can get your product approved in Cape Cod, cedar shingles are a way of life there. It's part of the culture of the island, and they were really protecting the look. So more than anything with Beach House Shake, the authentic composite shingle, it's about the appearance. We have the appearance of a natural cedar shingle. So with that, once we figured out the formulation, the composites also allow us to put high-end coatings on the product. So we use a coating that is infused with something called Kynar. It's the same technology that's used on metal roofing. So when you think of metal roofs, they really don't fade. Part of the reason they don't fade, the coating is Kynar infused on it. So this house on the lake is going to stay looking like this for the life of the home. UV doesn't affect it, moisture doesn't affect it, and the Kynar protects it from any of the degradation that would happen to more traditional products.
Now, and the Kynar coating is actually used on stop signs and road signage and stuff like that as well,
Correct,
right?
yeah. It is the preeminent UV protector. And I use metal roofing because a lot of our customers do metal roofing, and they just know, boy, metal roofs, you put on a green metal roof on your barn, or what, it's a green metal roof forever, and what's keeping it that good color is the Kynar.
So what kind of warranty comes with that coating and this product?
So we issue a warranty, it's 20 years, that there'll be no color change at all on the product. We know it will be a lot longer than that. However, we're in the lab up to 20, real world we're up to 9. It's going to stay the color it is for the life of the home, and that's with no upkeep.
So is there a possibility of extending that warranty even further?
I would hope so. As we get further and further on testing, we got good partners that make it. So 20 years we're super comfortable with. We've never paid one claim ever on Beach House Shake. The other thing that the Kynar does for it that's sort of neat, James, is Kynar also has a quality to it, and it's almost Teflon-like. Stuff doesn't stick to the product. So if dirt splashes, all you have to do is hose it off. You would never pressure wash our product, but it's really little upkeep, right? If it got dirty because you were on the job site, all it would take is hosing off. We do a lot of jobs a little further south where you grew up, like in Georgia, where red clay is a big issue.
Oh, yeah.
And we have builders come to us and say, wow, this is the first product, like when we were done, and the red clay comes off.
Yeah,
so
that stuff stains
the
everything.
Kynar protects, but it also ensures that stuff doesn't stick to it very well, and if it does get dirty, you just hose it off.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me, as far as the looks go, are, as you can see, this is our entertaining space. We're right up on the house. So being able to have a product that looked good and then obviously maintenance-free was a huge bonus for us.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was durability. Now, I do believe you guys have the Miami-Dade certification.
Yes.
So explain to us a little bit more about just the overall durability of the product and kind of how that was achieved.
Yeah, and that gets back, that's less of the coating and more of the substrate itself. The substrate is a composite, so composites make the product very rigid but extremely impact resistant. The other thing the composite does, it's very thermally stable, right? So it's not going to move much with changes of temperature. So with all that, we also knew with the name Beach House Shake, people are going to put it on the coast. We wanted to make sure we could survive well in a coastal climate, so we're Miami-Dade certified for high wind zones, so it's 160 mile an hour winds with projectiles, right? So the projectiles talk to the impact resistance, the wind plays on the rigidity, so not only will it look good over time, it's going to stay looking good even in really adverse conditions.
And we've got 2 kids, so we're definitely going to be putting this stuff to the test. We'll let you know how it goes.
Good deal.
A couple other things that I wanted to talk to you about was, and get your expertise on, was that when we were deciding on a siding, we knew we wanted to go with Shake, but there's a lot of different options. The one option, which we kind of touched on, was the traditional authentic cedar Shake, which the installation involved with that, and then is obviously going to be a lot more, and then just how it weathers. So I know kind of the pros and cons, we've touched on that. But there is a lot of other products that have that shake look. And for one was, we looked at engineered wood. Now, obviously engineered wood, kind of like an LP, smart side kind of thing. In my opinion, we had, it was easy to put up, but then you had to kind of come back and paint it all. Or you could get it pre-painted, but then you're kind of relying on that, the paint, as far as to achieve or to withstand those looks over time and kind of keep up. What are some other things on how you would kind of compare the two? I think I did a cost analysis on both of them, and I think they kind of fell in a similar price point.
Yes.
So what do you think? How would you compare the two?
So it's a great question, Jay. So I'll plagiarize the owner of the largest lumber yard in Cape Cod, right? So we went to them, showed them the product, and I thought we'd get momentum right away. But they took 2 years and studied all substitutes for cedar shingles. Because in Cape Cod, the demand for cedar shingles far exceeds the capacity, right? So they were looking for something to fill that gap. And over 2 years, they tested almost 50 products. So after we stripped everything down, I came to him and said, I'm thrilled you tell me why you picked Beach House Shake, the composite shingle. And he said, Ralph, it does 3 things. It had to pass a test. We tested every product first for appearance. It has to have the appearance of a natural cedar shingle. Then was performance, and last was installation. So if you look at appearance, performance, and installation, he said first, most of the products didn't make it through the appearance, right? We had natural cedar shingles and Beach House, and there was one other product he said that was close but didn't look like so you went on appearance, then it was performance, right? The fact we're Miami-Dade certified, the fact that, we'll do high impact, high wind, all that stuff, impervious to moisture. But the last thing was that installation, right? The installation of this product versus an individual cedar shingle, crews on the Cape, when they're putting in natural cedar, they'll do about a square a day. And a square is 10 feet by 10 feet. For people who don't know, it's not a square foot, right? They'll do about a square a day. So if you have a 30 square house, it's going to take a crew a month.
Yeah.
You can install Beach House Shake 12 to 15 squares a day. So that same house that would have taken a month to do on the Cape, they're doing in 2 to 3 days with Beach House Shake. So the crews liked it. And then lastly was just the upkeep. Any of the painted products, it doesn't matter what the substrate is, whether it's engineered wood, it could be fiber cement, it could be cellular PVC, they're going to have the geometry of a 5-inch shake. However, it's monochromatic opaque paint that's put over the top. That paint's going to have to get upkept, so it doesn't meet the appearance of each shingle being individual, and then over time you'll have to upkeep the paint. So just to simplify, when we think about why Beach House Shake, it's for the consumers looking for the appearance of natural cedar shingles. They know they'll get the performance, and the crew will get all the installation benefits that they have of others.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on fiber cement, because we actually, I kind of go back and forth between fiber cement and engineered wood, because it's a very kind of interchangeable, I guess I would say. But we did fiber cement on our house, hardy board, and we did board and batten, and then added shakes to the eaves, which is kind of a common thing around here and most of the world. But it was more for texture, and it's kind of all the same color. But to get that authentic look, you can never do that. So.
Yeah, and in markets that aren't on the coast or lakefront like this, where we're selling a lot of Beach House Shake is an application like that, they might use a fiber cement or a smart side or even a vinyl, but mixed materials are the design of choice now of all homes. So regardless of what lap they'll use, a lot of folks will put Beach House Shake in the rafters and dormers. It'll look just like natural cedar, and they'll never have to go up there and upkeep it, and never have to go up and paint it, right? So even if you're not on the coast, Beach House Shake is a perfect accent in the dormers and rafters around a house to give that mixed material look, regardless of the lap siding you would use around.
And the other product that I did look at was that PVC, which I believe AZAC makes a shake siding. And that was, again, it's kind of the same monochromatic look, but I will say it's a more durable product. It's definitely thicker. It's a more rigid product, which I could see possibly being a little bit tougher to install at times.
And it can be, but I'd go back to those 3 buckets we were talking about, Jay. If the consumer's looking for the appearance of a natural cedar shingle, they're not going to look at any of those painted products because they're going to be monochromatic. If you look at Beach House Shake, each 5-inch shingle, it's a architecturally precise, re-squared and rebutted. Each shingle is different. When folks come here and you'll entertain, they'll think you have cedar shingles on your home. They're not going to say, gee, what is that? Wow, how do your cedar shingles stay looking new all the time? And you'll have to explain it's Beach House Shake. Whereas any of those other products, they'll look 5 inches, but you're going to look and you know it's not cedar. Someone's going to, gee, what is that siding you used? It's sort of a faux cedar shingle look and everything's the same Pantone gray.
They know it's fake.
They'll know it's fake.
Yeah.
It'll still look okay geometrically, but it won't have that sort of nuance and texture of a natural cedar shingle as Beach House Shake does.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was going to say is when it came to PVC, the biggest thing that worried me was just the movement of the product. I know a solid PVC, same thing with decking is especially, I know they've tried to do certain things to combat that, like going with smaller panels and whatnot, but you're still going to have a decent amount of movement, and you guys have been able to create a product that doesn't have as much movement, and you've also been able to kind of hide that movement where it might be in certain ways. Touch on that for me.
Yeah, so that gets back to the substrate, right? So PVC, which is vinyl siding, cellular PVC, all of those products have what's called a high coefficient of thermal expansion. When it gets cold out, they shrink. When it gets warm out, they expand. So you really got to accommodate that in your installation. Whereas wood also expands and contracts, but it's not with heat, it's with moisture.
Sure.
So when it gets wet, it expands. When it gets dry, it shrinks. Our products are composite, so it's very thermally stable without absorbing moisture. So we don't have any movement in size with moisture, and our movement thermally is so slight, it doesn't even really need to be incorporated. And the slight movement we do have, we incorporate in one of our keyways. So the keyways help each shingle look like a natural shingle. So in a 100-degree swing of temperature, you may have one of the keyways adjust a 1/16 of an inch to an eighth. It's imperceptible to the human eye, right?
Yeah.
There's not a joint there, there's not a seam there. It's hidden in the overall design of the panel.
And I think one of the cool things that I saw that you guys kind of did was that each of those keyways, is that what you call them? The spacing between the two shingles, each of those is just slightly different.
Correct.
So that if you do have some movement in between the panels, it's not very noticeable.
Correct. You won't notice it at all. So we have homes that have been up 7-8 years now with Beach House Shake. They look exactly like the day they're installed, and the only comment the homeowner will get when they're doing entertaining is annoyance from their neighbors saying, why does our cedar look black and gray and yours looks like the day it was installed and you've done nothing?
Yeah.
And so they just say it's Beach House Shake, the authentic, it's going to stay like the day it's installed for the life of the home without any upkeep.
Sure. So last but not least, as far as comparisons go, the other product, and I obviously there's obvious differences between something like this, a composite, versus a vinyl product. Now, for somebody looking for a cheaper product, what are some reasons why, and I know those reasons, but I want you to tell them, what are some reasons why you wouldn't want to go with a cheaper vinyl versus something like this?
Yeah, and I'd keep it more positive why you'd want to go with Beach House Shake, and it gets back to those 3, but first is appearance, right? And vinyl and polymers are great products. They're at a great price point, and they're impervious to moisture, right? They go up easily. There is a place in the market for all those products, without question.
All right, now the other thing, I've got a panel left over from our siding, and I kind of wanted to go over some of the how it's installed for one, but also a lot of the features that you guys kind of built into this panel to make it easy to install. And there's a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on.
I want you to kind of explain this.
All right, so now we're getting really geeky. This is fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's what we do here.
So it's an injection molded composite. It's called Beach House Shake, but each shingle on the panel is different. And it's different because of the way we put the coatings on. There'll be different colors, different textures, depending the intensity of the coating and the direction we apply the coating, each shingle will look different from panel to panel, and there's never a repeating pattern. So with that, right, when we were talking versus natural cedar, if someone was installing natural cedar, there would be 21 individual cedar shingles that they're putting up, one at a time. They'd have to match it. Each one of our panels is 21, only takes 7 fasteners, so you're using a lot less fasteners, there's a lot less penetration into the wall, and it goes up super quick and super easy to install. One of the other features we put in with our contractor's feedback, we made these little ridges on, this is called the nailing hem, where a lot of the nails would go and a couple nails go there. You could actually, if you wanted to, use a nailing gun with this product. It would seat in that crescent and you'd use it, and it keeps the nail off enough to make sure that the product, that it hangs properly. So on those larger 30, 40 square jobs I was talking about, not only using a lot less nails and fasteners, you're going through it pretty quickly because they could set it up with a nail gun and just nail it off. It cuts with a regular circular saw, right? So it's super easy to fabricate as you're putting it on. As I said, each panel's 21 shingles. It goes up, it's going to go up exponentially faster than a natural cedar shingle will.
So you've got here, you've got a hole, a single hole, and then you've got these slotted holes.
Yes.
Explain the thought behind what's going on there.
So, like a lot of panelized products, that center hole, you're going to want to nail flush. Get that down. All the other panels, another feature we put in is something called a nailing stop. If you're not nailing with a nail gun nailing stop, you want to leave the nail about a 1/16 of an inch off the panel. So if there is any movement at all, that slight movement we have, that slot will allow the panel to move, right? So across the top, that would be the first nail. You'd put a nail there, and cut it in half. So you'd have 5 nails across the surface and 1 nail on each lateral, 7 fasteners for 21. And if you think about it, once again, comparing it to natural cedar, 21 cedar shingle panels, you would need at least 42 fasteners.
Wow.
Right? And I don't know if you've bought stainless steel fasteners any times. It's not cheap, right? So the difference of 7 fasteners to 42 also becomes another savings on the job site.
So, and then obviously we've got locking mechanisms here at the top, and then we've got locking mechanisms at the end of the panel, so you can secure that, and then this side of the next panel will lock into that one.
Correct.
Now, the other thing is on the back of this panel, we've got, obviously, this is the locking mechanism that clicks into the top of that one, or your starter strip if you're starting there. But we've kind of got a little tape measure down here at the bottom. So it kind of helps you through that process.
It kind of helps you through it. And in our installation guidelines, we'll tell you where to make certain cuts. It's measured right on the bottom. I'd also point out, while we're showing this, one of the features of our products, because someone may say, hey, that's gray up front. Why is that white in the back, right? There is a reason for that. That's the design of the product. The way we get each panel individually unique and different is the actual color of the panel plays an important part in the overall natural finish. I say that we don't put a paint on. The coating we put on is much more viscous. It's more like a stain. So that white on the back actually comes through on the surface, and the viscous stain will fill up the nooks and crannies. So depending on the depth of the stain we put in, that white is coming through, the Kynar infused coating is covering it. That's why you'll never get a monochromatic look. It's not opaque. It's more like a viscous stain that fills in the nooks and crannies in different directions. So that substrate color plays a really important part in how the final appearance looks on the product.
So another thing is, speaking back again about the final appearance, that I wanted to understand is that obviously you have, these panels are all the same. However, when you put them up on a house like this, you can't tell that it's a repeating pattern. How do you get that look, the different variations in the panels as far as like the colors go, and not just have the same thing over and over again?
That's a great question, James. So part of it's a trade secret, just like the Colonel won't tell you all his herbs and spices, but I'll give you enough to do. So we designed the panel, we pulled it off of natural cedar, but we also knew when they're fabricating cedar shingles, part of the reason each shingle's different, sometimes you'll get saw cuts, different grains. So we designed the panel to be orientated with a lot of different grains and saw cuts. And once again, you put that viscous stain on it depending on the depth of the stain and the application of the stain. Why this shingle will be the same on each panel. If we'd apply the stain this way this time, it's going to pull out saw cuts that way. The next time, and it's all done robotically, it's all computer. Next time we may either put more stain, less stain, or in a different direction. You'll get a different series of grains popping up on each one, so that when it's on the wall, non-repeating, every shingle is unique and different, because the coating is always unique and different, and the substrate has different orientations on the grains and such to give that nuance of a natural cedar shingle.
Very cool. That is a very cool idea, and I love how once you get it all up there, like I said, again, you don't get that repeating pattern. It looks very authentic, and I know that we're extremely happy with how it's turning out.
Well, I can't wait to come every year for the next 20 years.
There you go.
It'll still look the same.
All right, guys, so we're going to take a break from the interview and tell you a little bit about our installation process. So essentially what I did was I was able to start by trimming out the windows, and we trimmed out all of the windows with 5/4 by 6-inch AZAC trim. The nice thing about that is it will last forever, and essentially there's zero maintenance. I don't have to worry about rot because it is solid PVC. The other thing I did to make sure all those miters were nice and tight was I was able to use pocket holes, drilling pocket holes into the back of the trim and assembling all of those. That way, you just hang it on the window and screw it in place. Now for the fasteners, as far as screwing that trim in place, we were using the Cortex fasteners, which have a plug that you simply hammer into that hole to give it that nice seamless look so you don't see any of those fasteners whatsoever. Now when it came to installing this siding, we chose to use J-channel around most of our doors and windows. And essentially what this does is it hides the cut end of the siding. So the J-channel was all installed first, and then we were able to come back and install the starter strip and then start the siding. The siding goes up from the bottom left corner and you work to your right and up, and it goes up pretty easily and it's nice and durable. And the other thing is that this siding is held back from the corner, which you could just do a typical PVC corner, but we opted to hold the siding off 2.5 inches, I believe it is. And then we were able to come back and cover up that siding with corners that match the siding itself, giving us that nice uniform shaker look all the way around the corner. And I think it turned out terrific. All right, with that said, let's get back to the interview. Okay, so we've actually got some samples of the other colors that is offered by Beach House Shake, or that Beach House Shake has in its collection. These are the 4 colors that we talked about before. This one that I've got right here is...
This one's called Sandcastle. So this was our first color. It's made to replicate Eastern White Cedar. It'll stay looking brand new. Our first color, still one of our best sellers. That's most of the cedar that's used is Eastern White, right? Okay. On a sidewall application. And you can see even in the small samples, every shingle is individual and unique. The next color we came out with is the one you guys selected. That was Sandcastle. This is called Atlantica. And Atlantica replicates in natural cedar on the Cape. What they do, they actually dip Eastern White before it's installed in a bleach solution. It's called a bleached oil shingle, so that when it fades, it turns very light. The bleach, instead of the shingle turning dark brown, turns light. However, it stays light. If this was a natural cedar shingle, it takes about 6 to 9 months to turn light, and then it starts turning black again. So it gives a lighter color for a while, a great color, certainly the most prominent on the eastern shore and in Cape Cod. This is the sexiest color we have. It's Pacifica. This replicates Western red cedar. We just did a job in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where the builder won Parade of Homes, 46 squares of our Pacifica. Once again, a lot of Western red sold, especially as you get off the coast. We'll stay looking that deep, rich red.
And this is that Hatteras.
And this is the Hatteras color. So Hatteras would be, if you just follow sort of what we would be Eastern White. However, if you didn't bleach it, if you just put Eastern White cedar shingles on your home, in about a year to a year and a half, there'll be a really dark gray. That's all the rage on the Outer Banks, right? So they don't dip their bleach, their shingles, they just leave them natural, and they turn to a dark gray. So if you go to Nag's Head, hence the name Hatteras, we an ode to the, but once again, not in monochromatic. It's a darker gray. Each individual shingle is different and unique, 5-inch re-squared and rebutted. So those are the only 4 colors we have because they replicate 4 natural cedar shingles.
And I will say that is the one thing that I love is obviously you guys have put a lot of time and effort and research into the different, even just the colors that you offer. It's not just, hey, here's a gray, here's a brown, here's a whatever. These are actually replicating authentic types of shakes that are put up on houses in different regions and whatnot. So
and it actually, James, was pretty easy. You just go to a market like Cape Cod. What do you want what is the optimal look of your cedar? Oh, we use bleach oil. That's what it should look like.
Yeah.
First one was Eastern White. This one, you go to the Carolinas, we're looking for a darker gray. And interestingly, we sell all these colors in all markets. Different consumers have different preferences, but the one thing they all want is that individual cedar shingle look that Beach House Shake, the authentic composite shingle, gives them.
Now, we've talked a lot about Beach House Shake, but actually Beach House Shake is the product, right?
Correct, yes.
And the company is Tando Composites.
Right, Tando Composites, correct.
Now, Tando Composites also offers some other products.
Yeah, we have a stone product called Tando Stone. Little bit of a different substitution play, but a substitution play nonetheless. It is a composite stone that is used for knee walls on homes and bump outs, right? There's a need in the market. First of all, mixed materials, all the rage, as we said. Folks are looking for stone accents on their home. Unfortunately, when you need stone installed, you need a mason.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of masons. A day like today, the mason's not working because it's wet out. A day when it's cold, the mason's not working. So the market's been clamoring for a stone product that the siding installer or GC can install. With Tando Stone, we have that, right? So you can get the mixed material look with a stone knee wall. No extra trade, installs the same speed as traditional siding.
Yeah, and we actually did a cultured stone on our house when we built it. And so I am well aware of the downfalls of doing a stone facade like that, as well as the price that goes with it. Just an installation, I know that I want to say to get like a cultured stone or any type of stone, just the installation, the labor is, I want to say, like $22 a square foot. Does that sound about right?
That would be it's sometimes double that, right?
Yeah.
Depending what brand you're using, and especially if it's a mortar applied, it's a several day process, right? You got to get the wall set. You have to put a mortar scratch coat on the back, weight, a lathe. So 22 is a very cheap price. We see it much higher than that, whereas our composite stone product, Tando Stone, will install similarly to Beach House Shake. At a similar price.
And it goes up a lot quicker.
Correct.
And you guys now have even like an all-pro corner. Is that what it's called?
Correct. So we have a corner that lies flat. But one of the other nice features about our stone product, even different than if someone's using a cultured stone or not, much like our Beach House Shake, because it's impervious to moisture, right? So not only can you put it in a day like today, you could put it right to ground level, snow loads, rain. It doesn't affect it. Most of the other stone products still have moisture issues, right? They'll still absorb moisture, especially in the grout lines and the like. Tando Stone, you don't have to worry about all the moisture.
Unfortunately, I know that all too well because the stone that was installed on our house, we had some issues with and had to have it reinstalled. So if the installation isn't done just right, then you can have a lot of issues. And luckily, something like this with just a fastener in the wall, it goes up and it's not going to go anywhere.
That's correct. And where most of the moisture failures happen, and you know this, James, whether it's stone or Beach House Shake, people sometimes think it's moisture from the outside coming in. It's actually water vapor leaving the house, right, from change in temperature and showers. So imagine moisture leaving the house is water vapors. Hopefully you use a permeable house wrap. The moisture will come out. If you have stone without the proper gapping there, the moisture will absorb into the stone, and if that stone isn't gapped properly, you now have a wet piece of stone on your wall panel, which long-term will cause problems. Similar to cedar, natural cedar needs not only a permeable vapor barrier, but it needs a gap, a cedar breather, because as moisture leaves the home, cedar wood will absorb the moisture. If there's not appropriate gapping back there, you'll then have a wet piece of cedar on your wall, which over time will cause issues.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, Ralph, I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
A pleasure. I love geeking out about this stuff and learning so much more about it. So again, thank you guys. If you want to learn anything more about Tando Composites or Beach House Shake, make sure you check them out at...
So 2 websites. For Beach House Shake is more of a consumer one. It's beachhouseshake.com. Our overall website is tandocomposites.com, where you'll see both our stone and Beach House Shake.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to link those both into the description below. So until next time, be safe and happy building.